All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to start off with an introduction lecture just over the Renaissance. You do have some notes that go along with this. Again, it is fill in the blank, and it is word for word what you will see on this presentation. So, without further ado, let's get started. So, the first thing that I want to go over is just the Renaissance in general, and just a couple of things that you just really need to know about. First of all, the word Renaissance actually means rebirth. And so, what is, Europe rebirthing from? So, the first thing we got to talk about is the idea of coming out from the bubonic plague. All right. So, this is right after the time period where we see just a bunch of death. Okay. So, if you really want to make a comparison, you can actually make this comparison with today. So, with our pandemic with COVID-19, after we get done with all of it, there was a period, or there can be a period of rebirth and kind of just restructuring a society. So that's one thing to talk about. Another thing that we got to talk about is that we're coming out of the Crusades as well. So we're coming out of a lot of fighting, especially with the Middle East. But the thing is with this fighting is that the Middle East Islamic people actually did give us a bunch of innovations and inventions that we will see in Europe later on. Okay, and then finally, we are coming out of feudal Europe. There are going to be government structures that will change because of what has happened throughout the bubonic plague and the Crusades and everything along those lines. People just start thinking a lot more. All right, moving on. So, some of the emphases on the Italian Renaissance is that we want to get more of an urban oriented society, so more bigger cities. This is where we're going to get big cities like Milan and Florence and Venice and all those major cities that you hear about in Italy when anybody ever mentions the Renaissance. All right, we'll also see a renewed interest in ancient cultures, specifically the Greek and Roman cultures. You'll see a lot of similarities between the Renaissance and what we see in Greek and Roman societies. All right. And then finally, the last thing that we really need to make sure that we hit on is the emphasis of the individual, also known as humanism, hence the word human and humanism. All right. So all this is just an emphasis on humans' accomplishments and abilities. People are capable of doing great things. All right. We're going to see a shift from, a very, very religious group of people to a very, very, I wouldn't say non religious, but just emphasis on less religion, more of just humans. All right. So that's basically what humanism is. We will be spending a little bit more time on that later with some primary source readings. So let's talk about Italy for a second. So Italy is where we get the beginnings of the Renaissance throughout all of the different regions of the area. Now you got to remember feudal society here. Okay, so we have all these different feudal societies that we see in Italy that are going to change, and Italy is going to actually pretty much unify during this time period as well. All right, so one of the biggest things that I want you guys to know about when it comes to Italy and just all the different cities and regions is that they traded a ton across the Mediterranean Sea, which is down here. All right. On top of that, they did end up bringing scholars in from the Middle East. All right. And when they did bring in scholars from the Middle East, they did bring knowledge as well. So when we went over the Islamic civilizations, you guys obviously remember talking about mathematics and astronomy and all the different things that the Middle East Islamic people actually brought over. And the Italians are actually going to take that and just basically ramp it up a lot more. All right. And then the other thing we got to remember is that Rome is right here. And the Roman Empire and the remnants of the Roman Empire are all around this area. So we're going to see a bunch of just pride in the idea of the Roman Empire being in Italy. Okay. So moving on a little bit more, I talked a little bit about trading. But when it comes to trading, there was more urban areas. And these urban areas were known as mostly trading areas. So we have four main cities. We have Genoa, Milan, Venice, and Florence. Okay, and I put a little bit of labels on some of the geographic features we see, just so that you guys can get a little bit better of an idea of some of the main things that we see. Okay, so again, flourishing trade throughout all these cities. You'll notice that these cities are all either on the coast or they're on the rivers so that they can actually trade through water. So this is still a major deal that we're getting into, geography still. All right, so the five major cities, we get Milan. All right, one of the richest cities that actually controls trade through the Alps. All right, so the Swiss Alps are up here. All right, we get Venice, which is obviously a trading city. It's literally built on water. All right, and we actually see a bunch of trade go through the Adriatic Sea. We get Florence. This is actually controlled by a major family called the Medici family. This family is actually going to be a major player when it comes to arts and that revitalization during the Renaissance. And then finally, we get Genoa, which is on the coast, which is the other major trading city that we get in the Tyrrhenian Sea and also the Mediterranean down here. So not five, but four. You can see Rome as well. Rome's also a major trading city, and it's just also another tourist area as well, even in the Renaissance. So this is another image of these different regions and of these just different areas. All right. And then we get the trade that goes along with it. Okay. So we get a massive amount of trade that we see go through this area. Okay. Even, on the land and by sea. Okay. So this leads to the question. So how can trade actually lead to economic and political power? And on your actual Google Doc, you can actually sit there and take a little bit of time to actually answer this question. So pause the video and we'll come back in like 5 seconds. All right, so hopefully you guys have actually sat there and answered this question. The way that I would actually answer this is that I would say something that, trade leads to money. And the one thing about trading and money is that obviously money deals a lot with economics. So if you control a lot of the money flow, you can control a lot of what's going on in the economy. Now, every single government loves a great economy. It makes people happy. People can buy stuff. People aren't starving. This is all good things. So if you can control the money in the economy through this trade, you can also control what is going on in the political sphere. Okay, so this is just something to just think about, something that you are going to see a lot of when it comes to these rich Italian families like the De Medici families and other families that we'll talk about as well. All right, moving on to more of a political aspect of the Renaissance. We have one major thinker when it comes to government, and his name is actually probably the most fun name to actually say, which is Niccolò Machiavelli. All right, this is a famous portrait of him. So the one thing that he definitely did is that he created a work called The Prince. And we'll actually read an excerpt from The Prince, but the big thing with The Prince is that it leads to a question. Would you rather be, when you are a good ruler, would you rather be feared or would you rather be loved? All right, which is an age-old question that we see constantly through power and being a leader. All right, so take a moment and actually answer that question. Answer whether a good ruler is either feared or loved, and then also explain it. I believe there's a little bit of a box that kind of shows you and tells you all about it. Okay, pause the video, and I will get back to you guys in 5 minutes. 5 seconds, I mean. All right, so hopefully you have answered that question. All right, so we are going to actually move on. Now, there's also this idea of Renaissance art, and this is the big thing that everyone knows about. Yes, this is an image of me when I was in college, when I was young and, full of life and happiness and stuff along those lines. But this is actually, I went to Paris on a weekend trip during my study abroad in Berlin, Germany. And I actually got to see the Mona Lisa, so I took a selfie with her. So the one thing that I want to mention about this, just a little funny thing. It's not so much the Mona Lisa, but this girl that's just judging the crap out of me right now. All right, this is like the epitome of judgment right here. Okay, but anyway, this is just an image of one of probably the most famous art piece of the Renaissance, which is the Mona Lisa, which was actually painted by a dude by the name of Leonardo da Vinci. All right, and it's also, if you remember when I was, quarantined and everything, that's actually what Leo is actually named after, is Leonardo da Vinci. So moving on a little bit more, the big thing that we see with the Renaissance is just a shift in style. And so this is actually an image from the Middle Ages. All right, you can see that there's whole or halos around both the Virgin Mary and baby Jesus. All right, a little bit more religious aspect, a little bit more stoic. And then when we get to the Renaissance, we see a little bit more of a realist approach to this same image. All right. So we get baby Jesus and the Virgin Mary. The one thing that I want to kind of point out is the fact that we get in a book. So we talk about, baby Jesus actually like becoming more literature approach or have a little bit more literature to his side of things. All right. So there is that. All right. So this is just a nice little shift that we see within this time period. Now, that being said, we are done with this presentation. All right. If you guys have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out. Other than that, guys, I hope you guys have a great day. Bye.